Ladies and gentlemen, if these words have reached you, if your eyes are reading this now, it is not an accident. There are no accidents in divine law. Every sentence carries vibration. Every vibration carries direction. And this sentence, this message, this moment has been magnetized to your spirit by the law of perfect timing. You didn't just click. You didn't just scroll. You were called. You were summoned because you, beloved soul, have been chosen. Chosen not to suffer but to sever. Not to repeat, but to replace. Not to endure the pattern, but to end it. You are not under a curse. You are under a call. And that call is break the cycle. Break the cycle. What is the cycle? It's the loop that loops through generations. The invisible rhythm of defeat that runs in the family like a haunted lullaby. It's the belief that life must be hard, that money must be scarce, that love must be lost, that joy is earned with blood and bone. The cycle is not always loud, sometimes it's quiet. It whispers, "This is just how things are." It sighs, "No one in our family ever had more." It repeats, "Maybe I deserve this." It smiles in false humility and says, "Be grateful for what little you have." But that's not gratitude. That's spiritual paralysis. The cycle is not your personality. The cycle is not your fate. The cycle is a sentence, a spiritual sentence spoken long ago. Maybe by someone who raised you. Maybe by someone long dead. Maybe by the echo of trauma that never got rewritten. And that sentence is still active because no one ever counted it. No one ever stood up and said that's not the truth. No one ever dared to disagree with the pattern until now. You are here because divine mind has found a willing mouth. You are here because heaven needed a voice, not a victim. You are here because the sentence you are about to speak will end the sentence they all lived under. I declare over you right now, you were chosen to break the cycle. Not because you're strong, but because you're willing. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. And you can feel that the old rhythm is no longer acceptable. You can feel that the old language is rotting in your mouth. You can feel that the burden is not yours, but the authority is. You have come to this moment because divine law does not forget its appointments. And the law has kept this one with you. You were chosen to say what no one said. You were chosen to stop what no one stopped. You were chosen to begin what no one believed could begin. Now let the old pattern panic. Let the silence tremble. Let the ancestral fear make noise because you are no longer hiding. Speak with me now. I was chosen to break the cycle. I am not the echo. I am the ending. By divine authority, I cancel every lie I inherited. The pattern breaks with me and it will not return. You didn't scroll into this by chance. You were magnetized by assignment. And now the cycle has a name, and the cycle has met its match. The pattern is not personal. It is spiritual. The pattern is spiritual, and until it is spoken against, it repeats without resistance. Cycles do not care how much you suffer. They care how long you stay silent. For in the unseen realm, silence is consent. And every spiritual loop thrives on unspoken agreement. This is the first law you must understand. What is not consciously interrupted by your word is unconsciously inherited by your life. The law of cycles is not punishment. It is pattern. It is repetition energized by belief. It is the same circumstance wearing new names. A new relationship, but the same heartbreak. A new job, but the same lack. A new city, but the same fear. The external changes nothing if the internal script stays the same. And what is a cycle? Metaphysically, it is a spiritual hypnotism, a trance produced by generations of repetition. It is the law of substitution misused. It is truth replaced with illusion over and over, until the lie looks like lineage. A man fails, his son apologizes for dreaming. A woman is betrayed and her daughter fears love. A family goes broke once and their descendants worship survival. And because no one dared to speak differently, the cycle grew roots and wore the mask of realism. But hear me now. Cycles are broken by contradiction, not by therapy, not by willpower, not by talking about your feelings for 10 years. A spiritual cycle is broken by one thing alone, a new word spoken with divine authority. In Scripture we read that the iniquities of the father shall be visited upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. But listen again with metaphysical ears. This does not mean God is punishing bloodlines. It means false patterns repeat themselves until someone speaks the word of God instead. The iniquity is not divine wrath. It is misalignment passed down as normal. And you, dear listener, are the holy interruption. I have seen it again and again. I have watched families enslaved by felony until one woman stood in her mirror and said, I no longer repeat the rhythm of lack. I have watched children born into shame until one man declared, this ends with me. My mouth is my freedom. And the moment they said it, the pattern cracked. Cycles only look eternal because no one speaks eternal truth. But truth once spoken makes repetition impossible. You must see yourself as a spiritual firewall, a force field of divine law that refuses to let lies pass through you into the next generation. You must become the contradiction your ancestors feared, the sentence they never spoke, the yes to what they called impossible. And hear me clearly. This is not just about money. This is not just about relationships. This is not just about mindset. This is about spiritual identity. Because every cycle, everyone, can be traced back to a false name, a false decree, a false idea of who you are and who you must be to survive. And now Divine Mind is inviting you to rise into your right name, your spoken inheritance. Speak with me now. The law of the cycle has no power over me. I was not born to repeat. I was born to release. Every false we spoken before me is broken by my word. I do not bow to pattern. Pattern bows to prophecy. Cycles feed on silence. Break them with speech. Patterns feed on habit. Break them with holiness. History feeds on memory. Break it with revelation. And that revelation is this. You are not the result of your lineage. You are the reset of your lineage. Beloved, before you can break a cycle, you must first learn to see it. Not with natural eyes, but with spiritual clarity. For the most dangerous patterns are not the ones that scream. They are the ones that whisper. They hide behind your routines, your habits, your tone of voice, your quiet agreements. They clothe themselves in phrases like, this is just who I am, or that's just how life goes. But that is not identity. That is hypnotism. That is memory masquerading as truth. That is a pattern, trying to protect itself by pretending it is you. Cycles hide in how you react. They hide in what you expect without questioning. They hide in the things you don't even think to pray for, because someone long before you decided they were impossible. They hide in the pauses in your prayer life, in the areas you never bring to God, because someone once taught you they were just life. Let me ask you this. Where have you been most consistent in defeat? Where have you seen the same result again and again? No matter how hard you try, no matter how far you move, no matter who you become, that is the signal, that is the flag, the signal. That is the flag. That is the rhythm of repetition. And it is not accidental. Some of you are caught in a cycle of almost. You get so close to the breakthrough, but something always slips. A missed call, a lost opportunity, a delay, a derailment, and you begin to believe that almost is your destiny. That is a cycle. Some of you are trapped in the loop of not enough. You tithe, you pray, you save, but the math never adds up, the numbers dry. The doors don't open. You live in a constant hum of survival, and your nervous system mistakes it for normal. That is a cycle. That is a cycle. Others live inside the sentence of self-doubt. You second-guess your voice, your value, your beauty, your brilliance. You shrink before you even step. You dim your power in every room because someone long ago told you that you were too much. That is a cycle. And here is the mystery of it all. Most cycles are not yours. They are inherited energies, inherited beliefs, inherited sentences. Someone else lived it. Someone else feared it. Someone else said it. But you never counted. So it became your reality. You must now become the pattern interrupter. You must examine every repeated loss and say, "That's not mine." You must question every generational phrase that begins with "we always" or "we never." You must become spiritually rude, spiritually rebellious, spiritually disloyal to what does not serve your divine identity, because your lineage is not biology. Your lineage is divine law. Your bloodline may hold a pattern, but your spirit holds a sword. Say this with me now. I locate every hidden pattern and shine truth upon it. I do not identify with limitation. I revoke every spoken agreement with lack, fear, or delay. The cycle is exposed. The cycle is named. The cycle is over. You will not pass on what tried to pass through you. You will not carry what God never called yours. You will not live in the graveyard of someone else's fear, because now you have spoken. To break a cycle is not to fight it. It is to replace it. Divine law does not operate through struggle. It operates through substitution. This is the law of substitution. And it is the unshakable foundation upon which all freedom is built. You do not erase the old by hating it. You do not remove darkness by analyzing it. You do not dissolve poverty by complaining about it. You replace it with light, with truth, with word. When you speak something often enough with belief and with rhythm, it becomes law to your subconscious. And what the subconscious accepts, it enforces without question. That is why most people live out old decrees that were never theirs to begin with. Phrases like, "Life is hard," "Money doesn't grow on trees," "You can't have it all." These aren't truths. They're lies, said so often they became laws. They were spoken with repetition. And what is spoken with repetition becomes either the chain or the sword. One binds, the other cuts through. So I ask you, what are you repeating? What phrase rolls off your tongue without hesitation, yet secretly arrests your destiny? Do you declare that nothing ever works out for me? Do you sigh and say, "I'll never get"? Do you tell yourself, "This is just how it's always been"? Then hear me now. That repetition is your ritual, and it is up to you to create a new one. You do not need 100 affirmations. You do not need to memorize a paragraph. You need one phrase, one sword-sharp sentence spoken daily, spoken boldly, spoken as a legal decree from your spirit to your subconscious. This is not performance. This is spiritual court. This is you issuing a new verdict to every cell of your being. Here is the method. First, locate the lie, the old pattern, the sentence you've inherited, or here is the method, unconsciously repeated. Then write the opposite, not just in meaning but in vibration. If the lie says I never have enough, the new word is I am supplied by divine law and my abundance is constant, seen and unfolding. Speak this new word every morning, every night. Look yourself in the mirror. Put your hand on your chest. Breathe in the spirit of truth and saith if you are, speaking to the very cycle that tried to take your life. Because you are. Do not, the shift must come. Wait until you feel worthy. Do not wait until your circumstances agree. Say it before the shift, so the shift must come. Say it while the fear is loud, so the fear learns silence. Say it until it becomes more natural than your name. Because in the spiritual realm, what you speak often enough becomes your name. Let me say this again. What you keep repeating becomes the chain or the sword. You are either bound by your words or delivered by them. And you get to choose. Speak with me now. I no longer rehearse the sentence of suffering. My words are holy. My words are law. My words replace the lie. The old pattern has no permission to remain. This is my sword. This is my freedom. Cycles fear one thing, contradiction, and you have now become it. There are words you never chose, yet they built your world. There are sentences that were spoken around you, over you, and into you, long before you had the spiritual teeth to chew and discern them. These are not memories. They are contracts. And if not consciously broken, they become the quiet architecture of your reality. They are the phrases uttered at dinner tables, behind closed doors, in moments of fear, frustration, or resignation, not with malice, but with misplaced agreement, and they echo down bloodlines like hymns of limitation. We're just not that kind of family. Money doesn't come easy people like us. Don't ask for too much. Just be grateful for what you've got. We can't afford that. No one in this family has ever done that. These were not truths, they were spells. And repetition is their power. You may not remember the first time you heard them, but your subconscious remembers the thousandth. And now, without knowing it, you may live by them. Because a decree once spoken in fear and accepted in silence becomes a law in the body. Hear me clearly. These phrases were not, you are not the echo protection. They were imprisonment dressed up as realism. They were the voice of the cycle, begging for continuity. And because no one stood up and said otherwise, they became the invisible ceiling over your prayers. But you are not the echo. You are the end. You were not born to agree. You were born to cut. You were born to name what has ruled without permission and speak it into non-existence. Spiritual law is very clear. Nothing leaves your life until it is spoken against. You cannot think your way out of a curse. You cannot analyze your way out of a pattern. You must declare. You must issue the reversal like a legal order from the throne room of divine mind. You must become louder than the lie. And this is why your voice is holy. Not your voice as personality, not your voice as performance, but your voice as instrument, your voice as sword, your voice as seal breaker and contract cutter. Let us name the truth plainly. Name the truth plainly. You were raised in a system of beliefs not your own. And while your family may have done the best they could, the spoken limitation was not sacred. It was inherited fear. And you are now being asked to cancel every lie you were raised to believe. There is no loyalty in limitation. There is no virtue in repeating what kept your parents small. You can bless them and break the pattern in the same breath. Because love does not mean silence. Love means truth, and truth often begins with a holy contradiction. Today you will speak and the generational sentence will stop. Not because of force, but because of finality. This is what it means to walk in dominion. Not to judge the past, but to redeem it. Place your hand over your I cancel every lie heart. Now take a breath deeper than blood and say, I cancel every lie I was raised to believe. I sever every spoken chain that said I was less than divine. I am not the echo, I am the end. This family will speak wealth, not want. This line will live in light. You are not betraying anyone. You are blessing the bloodline forward. You are not being arrogant. You are being accurate. You are not breaking tradition. You are breaking the illusion that tradition was truth. The word spoken in pain must now bow to the word spoken in power. You are that power. You are that sentence. You are that shift. There are declarations made in daylight, and then there are decrees reserved for the silence of night. For it is in the night that the cycles try to whisper again. When the house goes quiet and the world retreats into stillness, the old voices often rise. The patterns awaken. The generational decrees dormant through your busy hours begin their midnight murmurs. You'll never change. This won't last. You'll end up just like them. But what they do not know is this. You now speak back. The mirror has always been your portal. It does not flatter and it does not lie. It shows you the residue of belief. It reveals not your face but your frequency. And tonight in that sacred stillness, you will meet your own eyes and issue the formants. This is not performance. This is not positive thinking. This is ritual, divine ceremony. The body, the voice, and the mirror aligned in a single act of dominion. Here is what this is ritual, will do. Stand before the mirror at night, preferably before sleep, when the veil is thin and the subconscious is soft. The lights may be dim, but your spirit must be bright. Do not scroll. Do not distract. Do not speak to anyone but you. Plant your feet as if you are the pillar of your bloodline. Roll your shoulders back as if heaven itself is watching. Look yourself in the eyes. Not casually, not timidly. Look until the old self flinches. Look until the past starts to tremble. Look until the mirror agrees with the majesty you are now remembering and speak. It stops with me. Pause, let the silence fall like a seal. I am the spoken line between bondage and blessing. Pause again. Do not rush the words. The power is not in their speed. It is in their placement. You are not begging. You are not hoping. You are announcing. And the mirror which reflects not just appearance, but agreement will record the decree. Repeat this every night for 7 days. Do not break the chain. And if you cry, good, the tears are not weakness, they are washing. They are the grief of the old identity realizing it can no longer rule. Let them fall. Let them flow. But do not stop speaking. Some of you will feel a shift on night 1. Others may feel nothing at all. Do not be fooled by silence. The work is spiritual, not emotional. The command has gone out and spiritual law cannot return void. This ritual is not a game. It is not symbolic. It is actual. You are recoding the way your lineage speaks. You are resetting the sound of your name in the heavens. You are installing new data into the DNA of your bloodline. You are becoming the sword cuts the thread of suffering and sews a new future. So, speak, go stand, speak. It stops with me. I am the spoken line between bondage and blessing, and the mirror will soon reflect a new face. The face of one who remembers. She was not the eldest nor the loudest, not the most educated nor the most affirmed. She was just the one who heard the call to end it. Her name was Elise, the firstborn daughter of a long line of strong backs and silent mouths. Her grandmother had worked 2 jobs until her knees gave out. Her mother had whispered to Elise again and again, "Just be thankful you have enough." And Elise for years wore that phrase like a garment of duty. Quiet, grateful, invisible, obedient to the lack she inherited. Until one night, after yet another panic about paying the rent, Elise sat in the dark and asked the question no one had ever spoken aloud in her bloodline. What if this isn't divine? It was a dangerous question because once a woman begins to doubt a family decree, the ground starts to shake. She went to bed with that thought like a fire under her chest. And in the days that followed, the spirit stirred, not through thunder, but through whisper. A verse she'd once heard rose from within like a seed breaking through hard soil. Let the weak say I am strong. Not ask, not plead, say. It hit her like thunder wrapped in velvet. The problem wasn't just the money. It was the mouth. It was the cycle of speech that spun the wheel of lack. It wasn't that the family had no access to provision. It was that they had no vocabulary for it. So Elise decided to rewrite the phrase. She took a pen, opened her notebook, and crossed out the one she had grown up hearing. You have enough, just be thankful you have enough. Beneath it, she wrote, I am the wealth of my line. I spend in peace and receipted it double. She repeated it morning and night for 30 days, not with candles or rituals. Just her voice, her spine, her mirror, her breath. At first, the old voice fought back. Doubt roared. Fear tried to guilt her into silence. Are you saying your mother was wrong? Are you saying gratitude isn't enough? But Elise had learned what most never do. That guilt is the last weapon of a dying pattern, and she refused to apologize for changing the atmosphere. By day 7, she noticed something had changed, not in her bank account, but in her body. She no longer flinched when checking her balance. She no longer apologized when someone offered to treat her. She no longer felt the need to explain every financial decision. By day 15, the door opened. A friend she hadn't spoken to in years called with a business idea and a proposal to fund it. By day 23, her rent was paid in full and in advance for the first time in her life. By day 30, Elise stood in the mirror and whispered, "The famine ends with me." And her spirit echoed back, yes, it wasn't magic. It was metaphysical law, spoken word over silent agreement. Spoken word over silent agreement, divine inheritance over generational fear. The phrase she repeated became her rhythm. The rhythm became a resonance. The resonance attracted its reflection. But peace, not just money, but peace, began to occupy her home. The air changed. Her posture changed. Her choices changed. Her children, still young, began to echo her phrases instead of her mother's. She did not shame her past. She did not curse her mother. She simply changed the decree. And now her family speaks a different tongue. Not one of survival, but one of divine supply. The spoken word is my inheritance, because, as she later wrote in her journal, the spoken word was my inheritance. I just had to claim it. It is not the new decree that hurts. It is what it threatens to displace. When you rise to speak the truth, cycles don't surrender quietly. They cry out in the voice of guilt. They masquerade as loyalty. And they accuse you not with logic, but with emotion. How dare you speak differently than the ones who raised you? How dare you rise above what kept them safe? How dare you think you're the one to change this? The words don't come from heaven. They come from the pain body clinging to its own reflection in your identity. And that, beloved, is why resistance always meets you at the gate of change. When you begin to speak abundance into a bloodline that has only known struggle, the first reaction is not celebration. It is discomfort. Why? Because trauma is familiar. Because lack is predictable. Because the nervous system has learned to find safety in struggle. Because somewhere deep inside, the child in you still believes that agreement equals love. And to break the cycle, to say a new thing is to risk the one thing your body was trained to protect, belonging. But here is the deception. Your trauma is not your lineage, is not your lineage. It is the wound within it. And to name it, to separate from it, to speak against it is not betrayal. It is honor. Because truth always elevates. And the highest loyalty you can offer your roots is not replication of pain, but restoration of purpose. Your grandmother may have taught you frugality. Your father may have taught you fear. Your aunts and uncles may have modeled quiet resignation. But now the Spirit has chosen you to model truth. And truth often begins in tension. Often begins in tension. Not because you are doing wrong, but because you are displacing the false peace that comes from hiding. That knot in your chest, that tightness in your throat when you speak new words, that is not danger. That is the ego resisting its own death. It is the spiritual skin shedding. It is the nervous system rewiring, and it is sacred. Do not fear it. Do not try to escape it. Speak through it. Let the tears come. Let the memories surface. Let the fears beg you to be quiet. But do not back down. Because if you silence your truth for the sake of comfort, you will inherit the cycle you were sent to end. And that, dear one, is not your destiny. Your inheritance is not in silence. It is in speech. So when resistance rises, declare this affirmation. My loyalty is to truth, not trauma. My roots are not in fear. They are in God. I honor the past by ending its pain. You are not the traitor. You are the truth. You are not the traitor bearer. You are the realigner. You are the realigner. You are not breaking hearts. You are breaking chains, and your spirit knows it. There comes a moment in every transformation where silence is no longer holy. Where prayer alone won't carry the power, where journaling, meditating, and remembering are no longer enough. That moment is called the reset. When the spell of an old system must be broken out loud, because the chains were verbal, the vows were spoken, the lies were whispered again and again until they felt like home. And now only the spoken word can dismantle what the spoken word built. Cycles do not collapse from wishing. They collapse the reset from decree. You must say a better sentence and mean it with your full being. That is the moment heaven records as the turning point. not when you felt different, but when you spoke different, when you stood in your hallway, or in your bathroom mirror, or in your car at the red light, and shouted the opposite of what raised you. That is when the old scaffolding cracks. Here are 3 sentences that shatter systems. They are not affirmations of hope. They are declarations of war. They are swords forged from divine authority. And they are your inheritance now. 1. I do not. The old story belong to the old story. You must say it with fire, with finality, with no apology in your tone. That story of not enough, of always barely surviving, of silence being safety. That story is not your origin. It is not your covenant. It is not your script. When you say this, you break the contract that says, I must keep repeating what I didn't write. You reclaim the authority to exit the narrative that was never yours to begin with. 2. My mouth holds the pen. Every time you speak, you rewrite. Whether you know it or not, you are authoring outcomes with your tongue. And when you claim this aloud, you stop waiting for fate to favor you. You stop begging for breakthrough. You stop recycling passive thoughts. You take the pen, not with hand but with speech. This declaration reminds the heavens that you are not here to repeat. You are here to create. 3. God wrote me free before they wrote me down. This is the most powerful truth of all. Before your name was whispered in trauma, before labels were assigned, before anyone told you what you were or were not, God had already spoken freedom over you. This sentence returns you to origin. It burns through the layers of conditioning. It reminds your spirit that no human decree can override divine authorship. And when you speak it, every system of limitation begins to shake. Speak them as a trio. Speak them as a ritual. Speak them when the pressure returns, when doubt creeps in, when the world reminds you of what you used to be. Say it, speak them again. I do not belong to the old story. My mouth holds the pen. God wrote me free before they wrote me down. Let your atmosphere be pierced. Let the room shift. Let your cells realign. These sentences are not noise. They are code. They carry the vibration of deliverance. They are divine interrupts, spoken keys that unlock reality. And once said with eviction, the old system cannot stay. You are the pivot intact. Let me speak plainly now. If you are hearing these words, it is because your spirit has been chosen, not to merely survive the patterns of your family, your past, or your culture, but to interrupt them. You are not a coincidence in your bloodline. You are not the odd one out. You are not simply more sensitive, more spiritual, more aware. You are the pivot, the one born with the frequency of reversal in your soul, the one whose very presence signals to heaven. It ends here. You did, it ends here, not volunteer for this. No child grows up asking to be the one who sees what others ignore, who feels the emotional weight in rooms where no one speaks it, who carries the ache of generations unspoken and unnamed. But you were formed for it, molded in silence, forged in contradiction, tempered in the heat of repetition, until you were strong enough not to replicate it. You are not here to criticize those who came before you. You are not here to resent your parents or mock their limits. You are here to close the loop, to complete what they could not finish, to redeem what you are not the black sheep they could not name. And that is holy work. Do not let the enemy lie to you and call you too much. Do not let your inner critic shame you for wanting more. Do not shrink to maintain peace that is really just disguised bondage. Because the true peace only comes when the chain is broken. And for your line, for your story, for your future, it's you. You are not the black sheep. You are the burning bush. You are not the outsider. You are the ordained answer. You are not a problem. You are the pattern breaker. Every limitation that has felt like home. Poverty, self-doubt, codependence, addiction, smallness, fear of abundance. Those were the walls. You are the wrecking ball sent not in rage, but in righteousness. And when you feel tired, remember this. You don't speak alone. Heaven backed your appointment. The divine has assigned angels to your mouth. Every time you speak truth, you don't speak alone. Your declaration rides on winds ancient and mighty. So, speak it now with clarity. I am the divine interruption. I was formed to, reverse was ruled for too long. The old ends with me. The new begins through me. And if the voice inside you trembles, as you say it again. Because the trembling is not weakness. It is the breaking, the walls coming down, the prison being emptied. You are not here to wait for a better day. You are the day. You are not waiting for the cycle to break. You are the break. Cycles are not only broken by decision, they are broken by rhythm, by returning again and again to the same spiritual stance, morning and night, not out of superstition, but out of sovereignty. Not because God needs a clock, but speak a sentence of authority because your consciousness does. And the soul, like the body, thrives on sacred repetition. What you speak when you rise and what you declare before you sleep, that becomes the pulse of transformation. That becomes your hammer against the pattern. At 700 a.m., you must speak a sentence of authority, a sentence that reclaims your mind before the day does. Because the moment your eyes open, the old script will try to rush back in. It will whisper obligations and fears. It will try to wrap you again in old garments of not enough, not ready, not worthy. That is why you must rise and say aloud with certainty, "This is a new day, and I walk in divine dominion." Let it come from your gut. Let it interrupt the thought stream. Let it stand at the gate of your morning like a flaming sword. This declaration is not just for motivation. It is for reprogramming. When you start the day with authority, you no longer let the past dictate your posture. You step into the now where cycles break, supply flows, and fear dissolves in the fire of spoken truth. At 700 p.m., your posture shifts not into apathy, but into surrender. You release the day with a different sentence. Not one of control, not one of panic, but of peace. Because the cycle breaker must not only learn how to stand, they must learn how to rest. And the final word of the day should not be worry. It should be worship. Speak this. What I have declared today works as I sleep. I release and receive. Say it into your space, into your chest, into the silence that feels like absence but is truly presence. This is how you close the gate of the day in trust. This is how you that the cycle of striving does not sneak into your pillow. Because even in rest, your words are at work. And in between these declarations, between 7 a.m. and 700 p.m., you will encounter resistance. Doubt will rise, old thoughts will argue, shame will try to take the microphone. But you, dear one, have been trained to recognize these voices not as truth, but as residue. So, you will encounter resistance. What do? You track the resistance. You write it down, and then you rewrite it aloud. Example, if the voice says nothing's changing, you speak everything has already changed in the invisible. If it says you're not like them, I'm not because I am the divine interruption. If it whispers, you're going to fail, you shout, I am the spoken success of divine mind. Doubt will rise. Do not let any voice go unanswered. Your silence is what kept the cycle intact. But now your sound is your sovereignty. So twice a day, every day, 7 a.m., authority 700 p.m. surrender, and throughout rewrite, speak, restore. This is how cycles die. This is how truth lives. This is how you rise again and again until the old world can no longer find you. The enemy of your transformation is not fear. It is the agreement you make with fear when you remain silent. Fear does not hold power on its own. It is only when fear is unanswered, when it speaks and you say nothing, that it multiplies, that it builds its house in your mind, that it lays bricks of hesitation, dread, and scarcity. But you chosen one have been armed with a higher law, the law of substitution, and it does not operate in theory. It operates in real time. This law says what you cannot. It operates in real time. Afford to feel you must declare over. It means when emotion rises, your mouth must rise higher. When the thought of lack presses into your belly, your spirit must push back with the sword of speech. It is not about pretending the feeling isn't there. No. It is about overriding it with the true, not the fact, the truth. Fact is circumstantial. Truth is eternal. Fact says your bills are due. Truth says my God supplies all my needs. Fact says you failed before. Truth says there is no failure in divine mind, only correction and completion. And this must be done immediately on the battlefield of the moment. You cannot wait until you feel stronger. You must speak even while trembling, because trembling stage brace cycles than silent analysis ever will. Here is how it sounds. When fear whispers too late, you speak. Divine timing is never late and I am right on schedule. When shame says you don't deserve it, you declare, I walk. Here is how it sounds. In unearned grace and unstoppable favor. When lack shouts, you'll never have enough. You proclaim, every cell of my life is filled with more than. I dwell in abundance. This is not motivational fluff. This is warfare. Your words are weapons. And the law of substitution demands that you never leave fear unchallenged. For what you tolerate in silence, you eventually submit to in life. So here is your new rule. When lack says no, I speak yes. When fear speaks loud, I. When fear speaks loud, speak louder. When emotion tries to drown me, I rise on the raft of my declaration. This is the law, not optional, not conceptual, mandatory, metaphysical. Now speak the opposite in the moment. Speak until the fear feels small. Speak until the lie is cornered. Speak until the truth takes its rightful place on the throne of your mind. And if you falter, speak anyway. Because the law is not looking for perfection. It is listening for sound. And every sound of truth you release becomes a chain breaking, a mind clearing, a future forming. You did not come to earth simply to escape what bound your bloodline. You came to multiply beyond it. The role of the cycle breaker is not just to say it ends with me, but to boldly declare it multiplies through me. You are not just here to stop the drought. You are here to become the rain, to overflow, to become an ancestral wellspring that flows backward and forward, healing the root and blessing the fruit. But multiplication begins not with action. It begins with the mouth. It begins in the mirror. The mirror has already heard your declarations of freedom. It has witnessed your nighttime stand, your morning decree, your trembling voice, learning to say, "It stops with me." But now it must hear more. The mirror must become your multiplication chamber. Become your multiplication chamber, the holy echo of expansion. So you stand again. Same posture, same eyes, same holy stillness, but now a new phrase. A sentence that lifts your lineage beyond survival. A sentence that opens the windows of heaven and calls down compound blessing. Speak this into the mirror. I don't just end it. I expand beyond it. Let it vibrate in your chest. Let it reverberate in your jaw. Let the mirror remember this frequency, so that your reflection begins to agree, not just with relief but with rain. You see, the trauma tried to teach you that being free was enough, that just getting by was worthy of a medal. But the divine says freedom is the beginning, not the ceiling. And you must get comfortable with more than what was denied to them. You must get comfortable receiving what they never imagined. Multiplication means you don't just stop the cycle of debt. You overflow with surplus. You don't just break the chain of silence. You speak and nations shift. You don't just walk out of scarcity. You fund others' freedom. And this cannot wait for external proof. You must begin by speak it to your own face. Speaking it to your own face. Because the soul that cannot declare multiplication in the secret place will never manifest it in the public space. So each day add this phrase to your mirror ritual. I don't just end it, I expand beyond it. It is your advanced activation. It is your sacred permission. It is your divine prophecy, and every time you speak it, the spirit realm rearranges itself. Heaven nods, angels take notes, and the mirror no longer shows you what was. It reflects who you've become. If you want to break the cycle, you must ban the language that built it. Most people unknowingly carry the spell of their bondage in their own mouths. They say what their parents said, what their grandparents repeated, what their community normalized, and they believe these words are harmless, just phrases. But in the realm of spirit, language is law. To remain in the pattern, keep rehearsing it. To break the pattern, ban the phrases. There are 7 sentences that must leave your vocabulary. 7 patterns of speech that reinforce chains, even when you think you're just venting, laughing, explaining. These are not just sentences. They are agreements, contracts of the soul, often inherited, often unquestioned. But today, we cancel the contract. Here they are, one by one. That's just how I am. This is the language of resignation. This is the language of resignation, door on transformation. When you say this, you declare that change is not available to you, but you were made of divine plasticity. You are moldable by truth. It runs in the family. This phrase is an inheritance of despair. Yes, patterns can run in families, but so can breakthroughs. Just because it ran in your family doesn't mean it has to run through you. I always mess things up. This is a verbal curse, a cycle on repeat. Every time you say this, you reinforce a subconscious identity of sabotage. Cancel it and replace it with, I learn quickly and I rise wisely. Nothing ever works out for me. This sentence is a prophecy of frustration. If you speak it, life will obey. But the law responds better to this. All things work together for my good. Even the unseen. People like me don't get ahead. This is ancestral programming dressed in. This is ancestral programming defeat. Instead, speak. I was born for favor, not for delay. I don't deserve more. This is the voice of unworthiness. It must be interrupted with, I was made in the image of unlimited supply. It's too late for me. This is the final trap. Time is not your enemy. Time is your servant. Cancel it, with divine timing is on my side. Each time one of these phrases tries to rise in your mind or slip from your mouth, you must answer it immediately. Speak this aloud as your sword. I refuse to repeat their rhythm. Say it when the old pattern taps you on the shoulder. When a family member speaks the old story, when your body reacts in fear, when your tongue tries to default to the script of survival, speak this aloud. Declare, I refuse to repeat their rhythm. I write a new one. I speak a new one. I walk a new one. The forbidden phrases are no longer welcome in your house. Not in your prayers, not in your casual speech. You are not cursed. You are chosen. And your words are the proof. If you wish to end a cycle, you must replace it with an identity. The old patterns didn't just operate through behavior. They operated through identity distortion. You weren't just taught how to live small. You were taught to believe you were small. You weren't just told money was hard to earn. You were formed in the image of limitation. You weren't simply warned about betrayal or poverty or ambition. You were soaked in spoken prophecy until your very bones repeated what your ancestors feared. But that voice is not your voice. That identity is not your inheritance. And you are not their echo. You are not their echo. You are not a repetition. You are not a recycled regret. You are not a memorized mistake. You are the divine deviation, the blessed disruption, the spiritual mutation that God slipped into the bloodline like a holy rebellion. You are the child of a new phrase. You are the one who hears. What bound them builds me. Let that line settle deep. Where their fear locked doors, your courage opens them. Where their shame held back, repeat these blessings. Your honesty attracts them. Where their silence made sickness fester, your voice now speaks healing. This is your cycle, free identity. And it must be spoken, not once, not quietly, not as a mantra, but as a metaphysical decree. Repeat these aloud now. I am not their echo. I am divine deviation. What bound them builds me. I am the interruption they didn't expect, but the blessing they prayed for. I am free by word. I am whole by choice. I am risen by decree. These are not affirmations. These are realignments. Every word you speak breaks one more link in the chain and replaces it with glory. You have permission now not just to be different, but to declare it. Not just to break free, but to remain free. And your freedom is contagious. Most people do not remain in cycles because they are cursed. They remain because they are comfortable. Familiarity has become their false god. They know how to navigate struggle. They know how to joke about lack. They know how to wear dysfunction like a family heirloom. And the idea of leaving that pattern, even if it is painful, feels like betrayal. Do not underestimate this. There is comfort in the familiar, even when it hurts. The subconscious prefers a known pain to an unknown power. It would rather you sit in predictable lack than step into uncertain abundance. Because to break a cycle is to lose the rhythm of your past. And for many, that rhythm feels identity loss like home. But that home was never holy. That rhythm was never righteous. That story was never yours. The second reason people resist the breaking is identity loss. They've built their personality around the pain. Their humor depends on struggle. Their friendships orbit shared trauma. Their self-worth is measured by how well they've survived, not by how boldly they've spoken truth. And so when you step out, when you speak differently, think differently, walk differently, you threaten their mirror. You show them who they could have been. And sometimes that makes them resent your growth. But you must still rise. You are not required to shrink so others feel consistent. You are only required to be truthful in your becoming. Emotional guilt. And here is the third chain. Emotional guilt. That insidious thought that says, if I rise, I'm betraying them. If I make money, I'm dishonoring their frugality. If I rest, I'm lazy compared to how hard they worked. But this guilt is a spiritual illusion. It is emotional manipulation from a pattern, not a person. The truth is rising in truth does not dishonor your ancestors. It completes their prayers. You are the answer, not the offense, so you must speak what is true. I love them, but I don't live like them. Let that be your spiritual permission slip. Let it be your exhale. Let it be your sword. Because if you don't sever the tie, you'll repeat the timeline. And this, I declare with boldness. You were not born to be the echo of dysfunction. You were born to be the voice of transformation. And heaven has already written you free. There was a man who for years lived in the shadow of a father's rage, not always visible, not always loud, but always present. It showed up in the tension behind every compliment. It echoed in the silence after every disappointment. It pulsed in the corners of his mouth every time he tried to bless instead of bruise. The man had never raised a hand, but still he feared becoming what had formed him. Because he knew the pattern doesn't always repeat in action. Sometimes it repeats in atmosphere. His wife could feel it. His children sensed it. That invisible thread, threaded by generations, ran through his voice, his reflexes, his fear of failure. It was the residue of a sentence never healed, the echo of a curse never broken. And he was tired, not just of the tension, but of the betrayal he felt in himself every time he saw his father's face in the mirror of his own anger. Until one day, he heard a phrase that broke something open. A sentence that sounded too simple, too merciful to hold power. But it rang like a divine eruption in the hallway of his mind. I forgive what I won't repeat. 7 words. But when he first spoke them, his voice cracked, his chest tightened, his jaw clenched, because something in him resisted forgiveness. Something in him believed that to release was to excuse, that to speak peace was to betray justice, that to bless the past was to risk inviting it back. But he spoke the phrase again and again and again. For 21 nights straight, he stood in front of his own reflection, sometimes shaking, sometimes sobbing, sometimes numb. But he refused to stop. He turned the phrase into rhythm. He turned the rhythm into ritual, and he turned the ritual into a sword. I forgive what I won't repeat. And he woke up different. 22nd morning, he woke up different. He didn't shout when the child spilled the milk. He didn't brace himself when he picked up the phone. He didn't flinch when his own voice echoed back because the voice was clean. He was no longer trying to not become his father. He had become himself. The anger didn't pass on. The peace multiplied, the chain broke, not in theory, but in sound. This is the inheritance of a spoken identity. This is the power of one phrase spoken, long enough to burn a new groove in the soul. And you too can speak like this. There is a reason I anchor everything I teach in the Word. For the words of Christ are not mere moral instruction. They are metaphysical commands, creative decrees that alter substance, identity, and atmosphere. Every phrase he spoke was law in motion. And nowhere is this more evident than in the sentence, "Go and sin no more." The Jesus key. Many read this line as a gentle rebuke. Some read it as a behavioral warning. But I tell you now, it is neither soft correction nor psychological encouragement. It is the spoken command that breaks a cycle and installs a new identity in the same breath. This is the Jesus key, and it is the very model we follow to exit patterns of fear, lack, addiction, shame, and poverty. Let us look closely. When Jesus spoke these words, he was not simply offering forgiveness. He was delivering authority. He was not just telling the woman caught in sin that she was clean. He was telling her, "I have rewritten your name. I have deleted your file from the archives of judgment. I have interrupted the rhythm of destruction with the breath of heaven. And you now walk under a new law." Go is a release. It is ascending. A holy go is a release, relocation of identity. It says, you do not stay in the environment that made you sick. You do not replay the scene of your bondage. You move forward because you are forward. No more is the rhythm reset. It is not willpower. It is not behavior modification. It is a spoken break in the pattern. It says what happened before this sentence is irrelevant because the sentence is the seed and from it grows a new cycle. In one breath, Jesus ends the loop and launches the future. This is your model. You do not need to keep revisiting who you were. You do not need to explain to anyone what used to bind you. You do not need to rehearse the drama or wear the shame as proof of humility. You need only speak what Jesus spoke. Go and no more. You say it to the cycle. You say it to the lie. You say it to the trauma. You say it to the mouth that keeps calling you cursed. Go and no more. Every time the old addiction whispers, you say, go and no more. Every time your body feels the echo of past lack, go and no more, you say, go and no more. Every time a friend tries to invite you back into the personality you've outgrown, and no more. This is not rejection. It is redirection. It is what happens when a soul once buried in guilt and fear stands up under the sound of divine identity. Speak it over yourself, over your bloodline, over your bank account, over your calendar, over your sleep, over your mirror. Because when Jesus speaks, the past must obey. And when you echo his decree, the rhythm resets. Now, we move from knowing to doing, from listening to decreeing, from observing the pattern to rewriting it by fire. You are not here to merely understand the law. You are here to enforce it. And I give you now a 7-day challenge that will not only reveal the pattern, but break it through rhythm, ritual, and spoken command. Each day, one action, one decree, one confrontation of false, one installation of the true. Day 1, name the lie. The lie must lose its power. And for that, it must be named. Today. Speak aloud the Corfa has ruled your finances, your identity, or your worth. Perhaps it is, I never have enough. No one ever stays. I always mess things up. Say it aloud once, then say this. I see you. I name you. And I revoke your access. Day 2, write the new law on paper, in ink, in full faith. Write the law that now governs your life, not how you feel, how you are. Write it as heaven sees you, Examples: I walk in divine provision always. I am the vessel of favor and overflow. I was born worthy and I rise daily. Seal it with your name and the words, it is so. Day 3. Speak at noon. At midday. When the mind is busy, the phone is loud, and the world is noisy, interrupt the rhythm. Find 60 seconds. Put your hand on your chest. Speak the new law aloud. Declare, this day I walk under this law. This day I eat from this word. This day I live as who I say I am. Day 4. Write it on your mirror. Let the first and last thing your eyes meet be truth. Write the sentence on your mirror in lipstick, marker, post-it, whatever you have. Your reflection is no longer neutral. It is the author of spoken transformation. And every time you pass it, say, I agree with this law. I am this law. Day 5. Speak before eating. Food is physical provision, and every bite can become a spiritual reminder. Before you eat, pause and speak your sentence aloud. As this food enters my body, this word enters my being. This supply reflects the eternal supply I now walk in. You are feeding the body, but also feeding your new identity. Day 6. When the old pattern emerges, you will feel it. A pang of fear, a reflex to apologize, a shrinking before someone's disappointment. That's the ghost of the cycle. Do not suppress it. Intercept it. Say, you're not me. I'm not there. This is not then. Then speak your law. Say it louder if needed. Say it trembling if necessary. But say it. Day 7. Burn the old decree tonight. Write the old lie down one last time. Read it aloud, not to agree, but to expose. Then tear it, burn it, flush it, bury it, release it, and speak. This no longer lives here. I return to sender every lie that was spoken over me. This is my house. This is my voice. This is my cycle now. And that, dear soul, is how a new rhythm begins. Now speak with me, not from memory, not from effort, but from the deepest place within, where your old identity has been shattered and your true voice rises like morning fire. These declarations are not recitations. They are spiritual detonations. Each one is a sword in your mouth, a law in your lungs, a flame in your footsteps. Say them aloud. Say them again. Say them as if the next 100 years of your family's freedom depends on your tongue, because it does. First, I do not inherit limitation. I do not accept the chains passed down in stories, in habits, in silence. I am not the product of their lack. I am the proof of divine intervention. Dokra, I am the first to speak freedom. They endured. They survived. But I declare, I say what no one before me had the voice, the strength, or the truth to say. I am the first voice of release, Mundram. My bloodline bends to my voice. I command the atmosphere. I interrupt the rhythm. I speak to every root, every echo, every ancestral bond. And I say, align with freedom. Nang. I am not the echo. I am the exit. I do not repeat what they said. I do not rehearse what they feared. I open the door. I cross the threshold. I walk out and I take the name with me. I rewrite reality in God's rhythm. My story now beats to the divine tempo. My sentences sync with heaven. My breath is borrowed from the breath of the Most High. What I write stays written. This pattern ends with power. Not silence, not shame, not decay. Power, glorious, holy, unstoppable power. The pattern meets its match in my declaration. My words do what history couldn't. No one fixed it. No one faced it. But I speak it whole. I bless the pain and I command it to leave. I finish the sentence they never could. I speak from divine assignment. I was not born at random. I was sent, positioned, appointed, this voice, this moment, this shift, it is holy. I carry divine orders in every word. Devati. I walk where no one before me dared go. I plant my feet where others trembled. I speak where others hushed. I rise where others bent. I walk the unseen path and leave a blazing trail. Now breathe. You've just rewritten the rhythm of your lineage. She came to me not in despair but in exhaustion. The kind of soul weariness that no sleep, no vacation, no prayer circle had touched. She had done all the things. Read the books, repeated the affirmations, served her family, sacrificed for her children. Yet a silent heaviness clung to her life like a second skin. The kind that whispers, "This is just how it is in our family." Heartbreak followed her bloodline like an obedient child. Divorce, disappointment, loneliness. Generation after generation of women who were loved back were never loved back. Women who gave everything and were left with nothing. Women who wore grief like a badge, as if sorrow was somehow sacred. She saw it in her mother's eyes. She saw it in her grandmother's silence. And now she feared seeing it in her own daughter. One day she stood in the mirror and whispered words, not meant for echo but for emancipation. She said, "This sadness is not sacred." The moment she said it, her knees buckled. For the first time, she felt the weight of hundreds of years of silent agreement, and she broke it. She spoke again, louder this time. "This sadness is not sacred. This pain is not holy. This struggle is not my inheritance." Something shifted, not immediately in her outer world but inside her chest. Her breathing changed. Her posture changed. Her eyes looked back at her not with apology but with authority. She wrote her own sentence. "I walk in wholeness. I attract holy love. I am the woman who ends the ache." She repeated it for 21 days, then 30, then 90. By the 6th week, her marriage softened. A man who had once closed off like a fortress began opening like dawn. They talked, they touched, they remembered. By the 3rd month, unexpected income arrived, an opportunity her family had once called not for people like us. She said yes with no apology in her voice. By the end of the year, her daughter stopped crying at night. That alone, she said, was the miracle. Her life did not explode with fireworks. It unfolded with glory, quiet glory, lasting glory, cycle-breaking glory. And the sentence, she still speaks it. She told me, "I look at the mirror and I remind myself that pain is not divine just because it's been passed down. I am divine and I choose joy not in rebellion but in revelation." That's what happens when a woman stops rehearsing the rhythm and begins to write her own law. And now it's your turn. In the beginning, God did not heal what was. He divided. He did not negotiate with the darkness. He spoke light, and he separated the two with holy finality. And this, my beloved, is the first divine act recorded in Scripture. A holy disruption. God as separator. God as line drawer. God as one who breaks cycles by creating new conditions. You were made in the image of that God. You were not made to blend in with dysfunction, nor to endure the patterns of spiritual oppression, masquerading as loyalty or family rhythm. You were formed in the likeness of the God who said, "Let there be light," and never once asked the darkness for permission. You were formed by the God who parted seas, not padded prisons. The God who broke tablets to restore covenant. The God who flipped tables to reveal holiness. The God who tore veils to release access. And you, yes, you were not just born into your family line. You were sent as the breaker of its false rhythm. This is why it feels so intense. Why the resistance comes so loud, because when you speak truth, you are doing what God did. You are disrupting every ancient agreement that has kept your name tied to fear, to lack, to silence, to settling. You think you're rebelling, numbering, revealing the true image, the divine nature, the seed of heaven planted in your tongue. So the next time your own blood whispers, "But we've always done it this way," speak this. Yes, and I am the divine interruption. The next time your past says, "Who do you think you are?" say, "I am the holy disruption. I am the God-formed boundary between bondage and blessing." Your command is not to coddle what has been. It is to separate it. Speak light where the family spoke limitation. Speak abundance where history whispered struggle. Speak freedom where culture handed you survival. God didn't soften the dark. He divided it. And now you stand at that same threshold. Draw the line. Now we arrive at the edge of the old. And you are not standing here by accident. You were not guided through this message to feel good or be inspired. You were carried here by the spirit of divine timing, so you could choose in this moment to end what belonged to you. This is not a motivational sentence. This is not a mental trick. This is not a mantra to test or a phrase to rehearse. This is a spiritual weapon. This is a bloodline correction. This is the final sentence that ends the old system. Do not whisper this. Do not mumble it. Do not say it with apology in your voice or tremble in your tone. Stand. Look in the mirror and speak this with rhythm, with authority, and with the anointing that has always been yours. I break what broke them. Say it with eyes wide open. Say it to the memories. Say it to the voices that never saw your light. Say it to every mouth that repeated lack like it was gospel. Say it to the shame they wore like inheritance. Say it to the silence that screamed louder than truth ever dared. You're not just naming what happened. You're shattering its hold. Now say this. I build what blesses us. You are not here to survive. You are not here to maintain what others managed. You are not a caretaker of dysfunction. You are the builder of blessing. You restore the divine rhythm. You plant vineyards where others harvested bitterness. You speak peace where war was routine. You are the one who turns pain into provision. And you say so because when you speak, substance obeys. And now seal it. I was chosen. I now choose. You were always chosen, but heaven waits for never consent. Destiny is never forced. It is spoken, declared, embodied. You are not here by coincidence. You are not watching by luck. This is your moment of agreement. Say it. Mark the shift. Speak the end of the struggle and the beginning of the story that blesses 7 generations forward. I break what broke them. I build what blesses us. I was chosen. I now choose. Let these words be heard in the spirit. Let them mark the ground. Let them change your face when you say them in the mirror. Let them follow you into every conversation, every bank account, every contract, every apology, every next step. You have spoken and the pattern is no more. Now breathe. Let it land. Let it root. Let the silence after the sentence be its own sacred ceremony. And if you feel it, if something in your bones said, yes, when your mouth spoke what your lineage never could, then say this aloud as you seal moment in community. I was chosen to break the cycle. Type it below. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for your soul to see your own obedience written in public light. A memorial stone in the comment section that says, hair is where I rose. Here is where it ended. Subscribe, but not to a channel. Subscribe to the practice, the rhythm, the discipline of waking up and declaring your own reality before the world sells you someone else's. This is not entertainment. This is spiritual reconstruction. This is what the world forgot and what your soul remembered just in time. Return here not when you feel lost, but even when you feel whole, especially when you feel whole, because identity requires reinforcement, and your voice, your truth, your rhythm, it must be practiced, not just proclaimed. So join me again tomorrow at midnight, at dawn, whenever your mirror calls, whenever the ache returns. Come back to speak, to declare, to align, to become. You were chosen to break the cycle. Now be faithful to your voice and speak again. Thank you.